and across the nation shatter records as people ensure their voices are heard.
We want to get back to living normal. Very important for people to get out and vote.
This is what democracy looks like.
From the State House to the White House, we're following all the major races.
Here in Alamance County, 6 candidates battle for 3 commissioner seats. Plus, how control for North Carolina's House and Senate districts may be determined through races here in the county.
Statewide, it's the race between incumbent Democrat Roy Cooper and Republican Dan Forrest in the race for governor. And the balance of power in the U.S. Senate could come down between incumbent Republican Thom Tillis and Democrat Cal Cunningham.
And in the race for the White House, all eyes are on North Carolina and its 15 electoral votes, as they may be just enough to push Donald Trump or Joe Biden over the 270 mark to win the presidency.
We need a president who's going to bring us together, not pull us apart.
And I have fought for you harder than any president has ever fought.
Tonight, our Maeve Ashbrook is following races in North Carolina, with Baylor Rodman breaking down the national contests. And our team in the newsroom and across Alamance County bringing you the latest information. As the country awaits its next direction, it's election night in America. Good evening and welcome to Elon News Network's special coverage of the 2020 election. I'm Brian Ray. The polls are now closed in North Carolina and we hope you'll stick with us as the results come in throughout the night. We'll be updating you on the races both locally and nationally as those results come in. But now our Maeve Ashbrook is following the local races tonight. Maeve, what races are you following?
Yeah, Brian, we have several local races to cover tonight, but just to give, again, a quick overview. First of all, the Alamance County Commissioner race, 6 candidates, 3 spots, and it does not matter which party the 3 with the most votes are. Those 3 will get those 3 spots with the most votes. We're also taking a look at the North Carolina House of Representatives, District 63 and District 64. Now, while District 63 does not include Elon University, it does include parts of the town of Elon and extends east into the rest of Alamance County. And District 64, like I said, does actually include the university and goes west into Alamance County towards Gibsonville. We're also looking at the North Carolina State Senate race for District 64. That's between the current chair of the Alamance County Commissioners, Amy Galey, and J.D. Wooten, who actually ran for this seat in 2018 and lost. We're also going to look at the United States House of Representatives a little more nationally and the United States Senate race. And it is the North Carolina State Senate District 24. Now, with 3.6 million early votes already in and over 900,000 mail-in ballots collected by the North Carolina State Board of Elections, I took a look at the state of some of these national races and how they might affect North Carolina. All eyes are on North Carolina tonight as the state is both critical for President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden's path to 270 electoral votes. Recent polling has the Real Clear Politics average, with Biden just 0.3% ahead of Trump. President of Elon College Republicans Alexis Malaguti and President of Elon College Republicans Daniel DeRosiak say the race is just too close to call.
I've tried to hold back on making concrete predictions just to spare myself some maybe disappointment.
I obviously want my candidate to win. I think all of us who have individual political ideologies want their candidate to win, but I'm just excited to see what happens as a result of this.
This isn't the first year North Carolina is a battleground state. Since 2008, the state has gone both blue and red, with candidates narrowly winning North Carolina's 15 electoral votes. Another important race to watch in North Carolina is the U.S. Senate race between incumbent Republican Thom Tillis and Democrat candidate Cal Cunningham.
Not the time to cast doubt on the most reputable organization in the world.
No matter who wins, DeRosiak says he's excited to see where his party goes in the future.
We're the next generation of Republican leadership, so we get to dictate how our party reacts to the Trump presidency, whether he loses in 2020 or if he gets a second term.
But for Malaguti, she says she's hesitant to trust her party after the election, even if Biden wins.
I think it will embolden the DNC to say, hey, look, we won this election without the progressive left or the radical left. Moving forward, we can continue to run moderate candidates and win that way.
Maeve Ashbrook, Elon Local News.
And the North Carolina Board of Elections say they expect to be able to count 97% of the vote tonight. But Maeve will check back in with you as those local results keep coming in. We're now going to head over to Isabella Seaman, who's over in Graham. She's been following the Push to the Polls protest and has an update for us on a lawsuit filed. Isabella, what's new over there? And we apologize for those technical difficulties. We will check back in with Isabella in a few minutes, but right now all eyes are on the race to the White House. Both Donald Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden are battling for those 270 electoral votes. We're going to head over to Baylor Rodman, who's following the presidential race. Baylor, what's new?
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian. And wow, what an evening we have so far. For the race to 270, we got Joe Biden up at 119 to Trump 91. All things considered, we're pretty much following historical trends. So we haven't seen anything yet out of the ordinary that is raising any eyebrows. That being said, in a lot of the states that we haven't called, things are a lot closer than you might have expected. In states like Texas and Georgia and so on and so forth. Let's check in really quickly, with Florida and its 29 electoral votes. Currently, President Trump is in the lead there with 51.2% of the vote, with Joe Biden 47.9%. Again, 29 electoral votes at stake. It's very hard for President Trump to get to 270 without winning the state of Florida. The campaign has said, and members and boots on the ground there have said that the president's really outperforming amongst Latino and Cuban voters, not only in Florida, but throughout the country as well. So that's something that we're currently keeping our eyes on. I also want to go to Ohio for a second. This is really important too. With its 18 electoral votes, also really important for President Trump to have that chance at 270. Currently, with just about 56% of the vote in, we got Joe Biden with 53.5, Donald Trump with 45.3. Today was the highest number of COVID cases that Ohio has seen thus far since the pandemic. And from voter analysis polling there, Ohioans have said that COVID is their #1 issue at the polls today. So potentially, maybe that's why we're seeing things the way we are right now. But again, just 56% of the vote in. And of course, we want to take a look at North Carolina. North Carolina with its 15 electoral votes. This is, of course, the Tar Heel state that we're in. And currently we got Joe Biden in the lead there with 51.5, Donald Trump 47.4. Yes, about 75% of the vote is in. But remember, for those ballots that are postmarked by Election Day, they're going to be accepted until November 12th. So again, we may not be able to call this tonight. Currently, Cal Cunningham, the Democrat, is in the lead in that U.S. Senate race as well over Tom Tillis, the Republican incumbent. So we're going to bring all the latest to you, but that's what I got for you right now. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Baylor. We'll check back in with you later tonight, but we're now going to head over to John Sarver, who's at a Democratic watch party in Burlington. John, what's new over there?
Listen to me. I am captain of the track team. And if I'm late,
she doesn't really think she's going to get out of here, does she?
Be nice. She's new.
Hello, is anyone there? Ugh!
Wow. Even from our standards, you look awful.
Oh, sweetie, what happened?
Me? My friend Becky got to talk to this super cute boy, and I tried to act like I wasn't jealous, but I so totally was. And then out of nowhere, this concrete barrier just popped up. Maybe it was a semi.
You mean you were driving?
Yeah. I mean, I know the whole eyes on the road thing, but this was a super important text. Maybe you have to know, Becky.
Texting? Great.
But it was only like 5 seconds, and I'm a really, really fast texter, so it wasn't even a big deal. Actually, has she texted me back yet? Wow, I get like no bars in this place. I wonder if they have Wi-Fi here.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
I rescued Toast from a shelter in 2011. I love Toast because she's a lazy diva. Toast does whatever she wants, obviously. She's sleeping right now. She's an epic snuggler. She's so comforting. She's so loving. Toast makes me laugh. When I walked into the shelter, I knew right then that she was special.
we're now going to check in with John Sarver. We apologize for those technical difficulties earlier, but again, he's stationed at a Democratic watch party over in Burlington, and he has an update for us over there. So John, what are things looking like over there?
Thank you, Brian. I am at the watch party for Democratic candidate of the 63rd District of the North Carolina House of Representatives, Ricky Hurtado, who I happen to have with me right now. Thank you very much for joining me, Mr. Hurtado.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
And I was wondering if you could just give me just a chance to reflect on your campaign and everything that's just kind of led up to election night 2020.
Yeah, well, this has been a long road to get here. We've been campaigning for over 15 months. We launched our campaign in July of 2015, and we're really proud of what we've done here in Alamance County. We've focused on the issues that matter to families, especially in the midst of the pandemic. When we think about public health crisis and economic crisis, and really thinking about how we chart a new path forward when we think about equity and how we bring our community together. And so those are the things we focus on, and I'm proud of what we've done so far here.
And could you just give me, being at this event here tonight, could you just give me a sense of what it's been like to interact with the people here tonight, and just what's sort of the sense that you're getting from everybody?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of family, friends here, volunteers who have been with the campaign since the beginning. And so people are feeling every emotion you can imagine. They are optimistic, they are nervous, they're anxious, they're excited. They believe in the vision that we've painted for Alamance County in North Carolina, and they are keeping their fingers crossed that that's the vision that we get to propel forward over the next few years.
And could you just give me a sense of just going forward, what are you, with regardless of outcome, what are you kind of hoping to see in Alamance County moving forward in terms after election night 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that what we've heard in the community day in and day out when we talk to voters is that they're worried about how they're going to put food on the table. They're worried about how they're going to pay for their health care. They're worried about public schools for their children. And more than anything in Alamance County right now, we're in a moment of reckoning in terms of our racial inequities in our past. And people want to figure out how we really bring our community together and really move forward as one. And so when we think about the divide between our communities, when we think about the challenges that people are having right now, that's what people want to focus on, and that's what I'm excited to push forward regardless of the outcome tonight.
Awesome. And thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me, Mr. Hurtado.
Of course. Thanks.
Brian, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, John. And we're now going to turn to two Elon students who are joining us tonight. They're the leaders of their respective political parties here on campus. We're joined by College Democrats President Alexis Malaguti and College Republicans President Daniel Jarosiak. Thank you both for joining us tonight. So my first question is, North Carolina has been established as a major swing state, for either candidate to win 270 tonight. So why are North Carolina's electoral votes so important to this presidential race?
So North Carolina, I guess I'll start. Republicans in North Carolina really need to come out in more rural counties. And in order for President Trump to really win 270, North Carolina really needs to go for Donald Trump. A lot of analysts, and I personally agree as well, the path for President Trump to re-win election is extremely narrow, and it has to come through North Carolina.
Yeah, and Alexis, do you want to answer that question as well?
Yeah, I think North Carolina is critical because it is a swing state. In 2016, we saw North Carolina go red for Donald Trump, but blue for Roy Cooper. And I think we really have the ability, if people show up for Biden, to turn the entire state blue.
Yeah, so going off of that, obviously there's a presidential election, but there's a lot of local races here in North Carolina too. So why is it so important that students, tune in and pay attention to the local politics as well as the national politics?
It is.
So for me, local races are more important, in my opinion, than the national race because they more so directly impact individuals' lives. The local races that I've personally worked with, Amy Galey, Steve Ross, John Paisley for county commissioner, and a few other races, those are incredibly important because they not only dictate what Alamance County residents have to live through with taxes, with infrastructure, and with other, the myriad of issues that go on that are on the ballot this election. But also, it's what Elon students also go through, and so I think that students should also be really focused on local elections because it's going to determine what their school environment is during their course of their college career.
Yeah, going off of that, I agree with Daniel that local elections are almost more important than voting in the national election, just because they affect you like on a ground level. I'm from North Carolina. I'm from Chapel Hill, which is a pretty blue area, so I actually changed my registration in the midterms to vote in Alamance County because I'm part of this community. I think a lot of times Elon students see themselves as being part of an Elon bubble, but there's a greater community that we're a part of, and the legislation that happens in the community directly affects us.
Yeah, and as leaders of both of your respective organizations, what did you do this election cycle to kind of help mobilize students in your organization, even outside of your organization too?
So Elon College Republicans really took this election cycle by the throat and just absolutely went at it full throttle. As of October 15th, we made over 300,000 voter contacts. And I think basically what got a lot of our students really motivated is fear of what would happen if we actually lose this election, which there is a potential that we will. I'm not saying, it's a toss-up state. We went out and we partnered with organizations such as our State Federation of College Republicans, with the NRA, and we really made sure that, students recognized that every single voter contact they made was incredibly important, and I think that hopefully it's going to have a really big impact.
So college Democrats focused a lot on having conversations. In the spring of 2020, before we went home, we just voted as a club with who we wanted to endorse, and we actually endorsed Bernie Sanders. So Biden wasn't our first choice, so we had a lot of critical conversations about where Biden has done wrong and then what Biden can do better and why people want to vote for him, why people don't want to vote for him. We talked a lot about voting in general and how we think that voting is effective or maybe not so effective, especially at the local and state level. And it was just a lot of critical conversations, and we had a lot of conversations about what it would look like if Biden were to lose and there was a Trump victory, and just safety concerns after the convoy that happened. So just a lot of conversation about how we move forward regardless of whether Biden wins or not.
Yeah, well, thank you both for your time and for your insight. We will check back in with you later tonight. According to data from Tufts University, North Carolina has seen a 9% increase in voter registrations in people ages 18 to 24. Director of the Elon poll, Jason Husser, says youth voters tend to turn out in higher numbers when elections seem competitive and high stakes, like this 2020 election.
Students realize that either person could win, their vote matters, this election is very much up for grabs by either candidate, and the stakes are very.
Here at Elon University, only 44% of eligible students voted in the 2016 election. According to Elon Votes, a nonpartisan initiative to help students navigate voting, they've seen an increase in students registering to vote, with many asking how to change their registration to North Carolina. Chalmy Truitt was one of those students.
Maryland tends to go pretty solidly blue every year, so I knew that North Carolina was a more important state to cast my vote in, like my vote would count more here.
Elon Votes says nearly 32% of Elon students registered for the first time this election cycle, and they expect to have student turnout data in March 2021.
Hi, I am here on East Haggard Avenue where the road just closed a few moments ago. I will have more after.
Do you know what hunger in America looks like? Well, it has many faces, and 16 million of those belong to children. Yet billions of pounds of food go to waste each year, and this is unacceptable. You can be a part of the solution. Join us in supporting the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks, which rescues our surplus foods and provides meals to many families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org today. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
And we're now going to check in with Baylor Rodman, who's following that presidential election for us. Baylor, any update?
Yeah, good evening, Brian. Thank you so much. We were able to call New York since the last time I saw you for Joe Biden as well. An interesting thing there is that New York ballots are only counting in person today, not mail-in. Obviously, traditionally Democratic states, we were still able to call that, but there should be some more votes coming in as well. Also, polls are closing right now in Wisconsin, but the governor has said that he expects to know the results tonight or tomorrow, as Milwaukee could still be counting their ballots until Wednesday morning. A few states I want to check in now on is Georgia, as this has been very contested, one that Democrats have really been trying to flip this time around. Joe Biden right now with 41.8% of the vote, with Donald Trump with 57.1%. So Trump's got a pretty good lead there with 35% of the vote in. Let's also go now to Texas. This has taken quite a turn. This is one that I'm sure Republicans are really watching right now. With 61% of the vote in at 9:15 Eastern Time, Joe Biden's got 50% of the vote to Donald Trump's 48.7. We're hearing that in Houston and in Dallas that Joe Biden is performing better than Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago. So I'm sure that that is certainly a contribution to why we're seeing that so tight as well. Democrats have urged us that this is going to be tight. It's a state that they've been trying to flip. You know, Trump without Texas is going to create a lot of trouble for sure. So certainly something that we're looking at. And of course, let's check in now on our home state of North Carolina. Don't believe that much has really changed. We're still about 51 to 47.9, again, with about 79% of the vote. So not much has changed, but some other things that, again, with New York, and New Mexico going for Joe Biden. We have both the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Wyoming going for Trump as well. So again, it's going to be a long night, but there's certain states are letting. This is a tight election. To say that this is going to be a landslide one way or the other, electorally it may turn out that way, but in terms of which candidate's going to win the state, they're going to be both very, very tight. But we'll keep you updated.
Thank you, Baylor. We're now going to check in with Maeve Ashbrook. About 64% of the vote is being counted right now in North Carolina. We're going to check in with Maeve, who's following the local races. Maeve, do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, and we heard from Ricky Hurtado earlier with John Sarver, but he's running against Republican incumbent of the North Carolina House of Representatives District 63 seat, Stephen Ross. Now, a little bit on Ricky real quick just to get here. He is an instructor at UNC Chapel Hill, and in his term, if elected, he wants to expand Medicare, raise teacher pay, and raise minimum wage. Yes, as far as reopen NC, he's very supportive of Governor Cooper. And then Stephen Ross, he, like I said, is the incumbent. He's held this seat since he was elected in 2012, and he wants to create a vibrant downtown Alamance County. Take a look at a little bit more about these two candidates.
Two candidates, one goal.
Currently, our leaders are failing us.
In this job, experience counts.
Democratic candidate Ricky Hurtado and incumbent Republican candidate Stephen Ross are both running to represent North Carolina's 63rd district, which includes the city of Graham, where the Confederate monument in Alamance County stands. Hurtado says he supports the monument being moved to an educational setting.
I think that we certainly have to find ways to continue telling the full story of Alamance County and why that statue was there to begin with, but it certainly shouldn't be in a place of seat of power in our community.
But Ross says the decision simply shouldn't be up to the district state representative, but instead the Alamance County commissioners.
When you try to go in and make a decision for a community, that's when you usually create more problems, you know. I've always been, and I may even be the largest proponent in the General Assembly for local control.
Hurtado says current leaders are not doing enough to respond to racial injustice in the county, including recent incidents right here in Elon where Trump supporters yelled racist comments at students and faculty.
Racism has no place in our community, and that's what we saw firsthand through Elon's campus and throughout Alamance County. I think it's incumbent on all leaders of our community at the local and state level to speak out against such injustice.
Ross says he was out of town the weekend of the convoy, but wishes the county didn't have to worry about comments being made.
I still don't know exactly what happened, but you know, if things were said that I've heard were said, it's unfortunate. There's no place for that anywhere.
As North Carolina continues to reopen amid the coronavirus pandemic, Ross says the process could have been smoother, but Hurtado says he is fully in support of Governor Roy Cooper's decisions. Maeve Ashbrook, Elon Local News.
And we're now joined by presidential historian Mark Dahlhaus. Dr. Dahlhaus, thank you for joining us this evening.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, so my first question, according to the ELECT project, more than 100 million Americans, and here in North Carolina, 4.5 million people early voted. So what should we make of the early voting numbers in this election cycle?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we should make of the early vote numbers at this point is that they most likely are could be giving us a false image of what ultimately will happen. I think this is going to be a long night. I think that patience is in order. I think that there can be a red mirage, a blue mirage because of these early votes. I think what will really count, well, let me back up. I think the big story here really is the number of early voting Americans who voted prior to today. Over 100 million Americans voted. That is incredible. That is, I think, on a par to put us with the election of 1900, which is over 120 years ago, which would be incredibly significant. So there's that.
Yeah, and you know, there's been a lot of talk this election cycle about maybe not knowing who is going to win the presidency tonight, but you know,
Right.
most election years we don't actually know that. It's just projections. So why do you think so many people are concerned this year about not potentially knowing the winner tonight?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of concern because there has been so much publicity that has been frankly exacerbated by the president and by others, as well as people on the left who then have become very worried about that. And I think there's sort of a group mentality to that, a groupthink mentality, and people begin to spin the worst scenarios. And so I think that that's probably a lot of it. I think that, you know, historically, that would not be unusual if we do go into overtime. There is historical precedent for that. And so I think our institutions are durable, and I think that most Americans would end up being supportive, I hope, of whoever does win this election.
Yeah, and as we heard earlier in the show tonight, Jason Husser from the Elon poll told me that youth voters tend to have higher turnout in competitive and high-stakes elections. But, you know, as I said, we've seen record numbers of early voting this year. So do you think that's true of all voters, not just youth?
I do. I think, at least from the numbers I've seen, I think there has been mobilization across the board of people coming out, in part because, I think, to reference your previous question, because people have been afraid about voting in a pandemic, voting on today. So I think that did drive the numbers up, and it certainly drove the youth vote up, which I think that's another very encouraging story that comes out of this election, no matter who wins tonight. The unprecedented numbers of millennials and Gen Z who have voted in this election.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us tonight, Dr. Dahlhaus. And we will be right back with ENN's special coverage.
I'll be right back. Hi! You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then Why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
And right now we're hearing that 12 precincts are reporting. We're going to check in with Maeve Ashbrook following those local races. Maeve, what do you have for us right now?
Yeah, so first of all, to start off with those 12 precincts reporting as far as the Alamance County Commissioner candidates, one thing that we're going to be looking at is right now at least the top 3 candidates. Like I said, 6 candidates, 3 seats. It doesn't matter what your party is. The people with the 3 most number of votes are going to get those seats. Well, right now it's the 3 Republicans, John Paisley Jr., Pamela Thompson, and Bill Lashley Jr. Now, to get into it, now those are the 3 Republicans, like I said. Bill Lashley Jr., his father is currently on the Board of Commissioners, but he's stepping down. He himself has a background in business and finance. As far as John Paisley Jr., he's actually an Elon alumnus. He graduated in 1970. He's been a private practice lawyer in Alamance County. And as far as Pamela Thompson, she is a little bit involved in Alamance County politics. She's a member of the Board of Education, and she was the only member in the summer to vote for in-person classes for Alamance County. Now, ABSS is currently still doing online-only classes. Brian, that's as far as the state of the race I have for you for the Alamance County Board of Commissioners. Back to you.
Thank you, Maeve. We will check back in with you soon. We're now going to head over to Margaret Faust. She's on East Haggard Avenue. That road is closed for the next couple days. Margaret, how are things looking over there right now?
Street. I haven't seen many students, walking back and forth between the 2 sides of campus. The police officers were here a few minutes before 9 o'clock to set up these road barriers. The road closure starts across the street from Circle K and then goes all the way down East Haggard Avenue, and the road opens back up again past the library just before the academic pavilion. There is a second road closure tonight. Phoenix Drive, which is the road that goes behind the Global and Loy neighborhoods, is also closed. That's going to be closed for the next 2 nights. Only at night, though. It will be open during the day. East Haggard Avenue was closed for a community art project. The art project does not start until tomorrow, but the road is going to be closed until this Thursday at 7 a.m. It will reopen. That is all I have for you on the road closure. Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Margaret. And East Haggard runs right through the heart of campus, right in front of Alamance Fountain. And local and state health department quarantine regulations are expected to impact voting across the nation today. But some Elon students in quarantine are some of those who can't cast their vote in person. Senior Eduardo Gonzalez tested positive for COVID-19 last week and is staying at a close-by hotel in Burlington. Gonzalez changed his voter registration to North Carolina. He told ENN he wants to cast his vote in a swing state. Now he's accepting that his voice may not be heard at all.
It's kind of unfair to, I guess, punish me by not voting, by not being able to vote. But, I mean, I don't know what they can do to kind of make that right at the same time.
Elon Vote Supervisor Bob Frigo says the organization has been encouraging students to vote early to avoid those quarantine situations. The Alamance County Board of Elections did not respond to a request for comment. And we're now going to check in with Baylor Rodman again. He's following the presidential race. Baylor, what updates do you have for us right now?
Sure, yeah. ENN can now project that Joe Biden will win the District of Columbia with its 3 electoral votes as well. I want to give you, though, a good update on North Carolina. With our 15 electoral votes, it's been pretty tight. We still are about 50.2% for Joe Biden and 48.7% for Donald Trump. On the Senate side, though, we got Cal Cunningham leading Tom Tillis with a 48 to 47. So, again, we're seeing some, looks like so far, we're seeing some cross-ballot voting there. Again, certainly way too close to call. Let's give you an update now on Pennsylvania as well. If I can click on that, there we go. 20 electoral votes. Here we are. We got 58.7% for Joe Biden, with Donald Trump 40.3%. Again, just about 13% reporting there. Again, that margin is still pretty big. But obviously, you know, Pennsylvania, we're going to be waiting on a lot of votes for sure. So probably won't be able to make any sort of projection there tonight. I want to also bring you to Ohio, where we have 65% reporting, where Joe Biden is still there in the lead. Electorally speaking, this could be kind of a bigger deal if Joe Biden is able to win Ohio than Florida as well, even though Ohio has less electoral votes. The trends that we're so far seeing from voter analysis in Ohio and Pennsylvania and kind of that upper Midwest there seems to be trending very much similarly, if that makes sense. Also, we're hearing that Joe Biden is currently doing better than Hillary Clinton did for sure in 2016, especially with third-party voters, as well as people who didn't necessarily vote at all in 2016. So a lot of new numbers coming in. Again, in a lot of these big swing states, we knew it was going to be tight, right? But we're still unable to make a lot of these important projections in Florida, Ohio here, of course, Pennsylvania, and Texas has still been very, very close for sure. I think really no matter how that goes, it's certainly been a good night for Democrats in Texas. But that's what we got so far. And Brian, with the latest updates I have, I swear I'll bring them to you. But for now, we'll head back to you.
Thanks, Baylor. We'll count on you. Following months of civil unrest and protests in the country, race relations is playing a role in this election, with both presidential candidates asked about it in the debates. Some members of the Black community at Elon say there's a lot at stake. Alicia Powell says she didn't want to leave her apartment on Election Day for fears of her safety as a Black woman.
I've been harassed like 3 times last month, one on campus, twice off campus. I see Trump flags driving around. I see people with guns sometimes. It's very scary.
Powell says this election is about more than picking candidates.
We're fighting for our country, like democracy completely. When was America great? You know, I feel like I've never gotten a full we've never gotten the full win. Is that when slavery was happening? Is that when white people were supreme?
Kennedy Boston has been attending Black Lives Matter protests in the community, trying to make her voice heard.
This is more than just who's going to be president. This is how will I continue to live my life in this country, or how quickly should I be getting out of this country in order to continue to live my life as I have previously. And that's a really terrifying thing to think about.
Political science professor Damian Blake says this election cycle is unlike any other he's seen. In the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, Blake says people of color are facing 2 pandemics.
There's also the pandemics around race and social justice. And so I think the results of the elections will further deepen and intensify the frayed race relations in the Alamance and Burlington area.
Powell says she hopes whoever inherits the presidency can create change for Black Americans.
I think they all try. I think they're politicians at the end of the day. So that means lies. That means empty promises sometimes, because they have all high hopes.
According to the North Carolina Board of Elections, 20% of registered voters in North Carolina are Black. And ENN is now projecting that incumbent Ted Budd will win re-election in North Carolina's 13th congressional district. We're going to head over to Maeve Ashbrook with more on that race. Maeve?
Yeah, and Brian, like you just said, Ted Budd has won re-election, to the United States House of Representatives, and he beat Navy veteran and small business owner Scott Huffman. Now, interesting fact about this is the first time Alamance County has ever been in the 13th district. It used to be in the 6th, so even though this is Budd's third term re-elected to this position, it's his first time serving Alamance County, and he says that all of the other colleges and universities in his old district will help him serve Elon students the best. Now, Brian, that's all I have. Back to you.
Thank you, Maeve. We're going to check back in with Isabella Seaman over in Graham. Isabella, what's new over there?
Yeah, Brian, so there has been 2 lawsuits that have come out of the March to the Polls on Saturday. One lawsuit was filed by Reverend Gregory Drumright and Justice for the Next Generation. The other one has been filed by the ACLU of North Carolina. Now, I spoke with Amy Cooper, who is part of Alamance United and was part of one of the lawsuits, and she says that she wishes Saturday went a lot like today.
Today went great. The numbers were amazing, and to see so many people supporting us here in Graham is amazing. I mean, I don't really know how else to describe it. It's great.
Now, if you want to watch any of the press conferences from the Sheriff's Department, the Graham Police Department, and or Reverend Drumright, you can visit our website, elonnewsnetwork.com. Brian, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Isabella, for that update, and we'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Local Republicans are meeting in person tonight for a watch party event, and now our Ashlyn Delowy is over there in Burlington. Ashlyn, how are things looking?
Thank you, Ryan. We are a little 2 hours into this event here, hosted by the Alamance County GOP. Nearly 100 local Alamance County residents have been floating in and out of this room, watching the night unfold. As you see here on the projection right behind me, there has been some excitement and cheers for those states that President Trump is projected to win as of right now. But other than that, everyone here is ready and waiting for more of those results to come in. Stay tuned for more updates. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Ashlyn. Some Elon students spent their day off, their election day, working at the polls. Elon senior Megan Norris spent 13 hours at Elon Elementary School greeting and directing voters. Norris says she wanted to be a poll worker because she heard a need for younger people to step up.
So kind of a combination of like helping keep elderly folks safe while also like keeping elections running smoothly, but also like the pay is nice.
There, Nor helped disabled voters cast their ballots so they didn't have to leave their car. She says she asked to be a curbside greeter because of COVID-19 concerns, and greeters are stationed outside.
everyone's been really safe about masks and everything so far. Like, I think I would have been safe being inside as well, but I wanted to be extra sure.
Nora says there were only a few curbside voters today, but she says after her shift, she will attend a watch party. We're now going to check back in with Baylor Rodman, who's following that presidential race. Baylor, what updates do you have for us right now?
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, nothing new yet for President Trump in terms of things we're able to call for him. We can call Colorado, though, for Joe Biden, not only winning that state, but we can also project that John Hickenlooper, who you know also ran in the presidential primary here in 2020, then dropped out, was a front runner for sure for the U.S. Senate race. He has beat Cory Gardner. We can project that as well. So Republicans will lose that seat there. That was considered a must-win for Democrats, again, if they wanted a shot at taking over the majority. But again, so those races are certainly something that we're following. I want to bring you to Ohio, though. This is where things get really interesting for sure. So we have Trump ahead here with just 0.7% of the vote. But the mayor of Dayton, Ohio, Ann Whaley, says Biden's lead in Montgomery County is very, very encouraging for the Biden campaign and how things may play out tonight. Montgomery County is one of those counties where not only that Dayton is located, but is a county that Trump carried 4 years ago that he flipped from the Obama era. So they are looking pretty hopeful there. But again, Trump still has that slight lead there in Ohio, so certainly not anything that we're going to be able to call relatively soon. That's pretty much the latest I have for you.
Thank you, Baylor, and we'll be right back.
Chipmunks want to remind you, bacteria can hide in food and make you ill.
Wow.
But you can keep bacteria from ruining your day with 4 simple steps. Clean.
I'm waiting for the rinse cycle.
Separate. Cook.
Fire in the hole!
And chill.
We chipmunks are notoriously tidy.
Check your steps. The road trip to food safety starts at foodsafety.gov.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
And we do have an update for you on the governor's race here in North Carolina. ENN is projecting that right now Roy Cooper is up by 51%, that is, with Dan Forest 47%. And again, about 70% of precincts are reporting right now, so not all the votes are counted yet. But we're going to head over to Maeve Ashbrook, who can talk a little bit more about this race. Maeve?
Yeah, Roy Cooper was elected to his governorship in 2016, and Dan Forest is his lieutenant governor. He's his Republican opponent. Now, if we're looking at a little bit more into those two candidates, Roy Cooper, if elected to a second term, says he wants to continue expanding Medicare in the state. He also wants to raise teacher pay, establish a paid parental leave, and he also wants to continue combating the opioid epidemic. He says that that was one of his biggest accomplishments in his first term. Now, as far as Dan Forest, he is really interested in schools being able to choose whether they are opened or closed, defending the police, implementing voter ID laws. Now, Roy Cooper is the governor. He says that he has been establishing the Reopen NC plan. He thinks it's going well. Forrest, however, says that he doesn't think it's gone so good.
Thank you, Maeve. And we will keep watching that governor's race as the votes keep coming in. And now we're going to turn back to our student panel. Again, that is College Democrats President Alexis Malaguti and Daniel Jarosiak, who is the president of College Republicans. So ENN is projecting that Ted Budd will win re-election for North Carolina's 13th district in U.S. Congress. So for both of you, what does that mean for North Carolina's control of Congress?
I guess I'll start with that since Ted Budd is a Republican. Right now, based on what I've researched, we have a 6-3 lead in the North Carolina congressional makeup of Republicans versus Democrats, and I think Ted Budd winning re-election is incredibly important to show that Alamance County in this district, the district that Ted Budd represents, is still a conservative area, and it still is incredibly important to Republicans that he gets reelected. I personally am excited that Ted Budd got reelected. I did a lot of work on Ted Budd's campaign, and a lot of my members did work on Ted Budd's campaign. So I saw that result come in, and I was extremely excited that all the work that we made really paid off. And I think he's going to do great dividends for North Carolina.
It's certainly not an exciting result for us at College Democrats, or for me personally at least, but it's also not entirely unsurprising. I've lived in North Carolina my entire life, and knowing Alamance County and the way that state Congress works here, it's not a surprising result.
Yeah, and we just gave a quick update on the governor's race again. About 70% of precincts are reporting, with Roy Cooper leading right now by about 52%. So, in terms of the governor's race and in regards to the pandemic, if Dan Forest is elected, Daniel, do you think we can expect to see changes in the response to COVID-19 that Roy Cooper has been setting for the last couple months?
Definitely. I think, first off, I just want to say that race is a lot closer than I anticipated it going to be. I thought that Roy Cooper was going to win handedly in North Carolina, and the fact that Dan Forest is that close, I think that's a really good sign. To answer your question, though, Brian, I definitely think from the moment if Dan Forest gets reelected, he did make a promise that he would declare all businesses as essential. So these, business restrictions, the businesses that can open, size restrictions on the number of people who can attend events and gatherings, that will probably change immediately. So yes, I definitely think COVID restrictions would change pretty drastically from what they are now.
For you, if Governor Cooper is reelected, do you think we can expect to see some new policies around COVID-19?
I think Cooper is planning on continuing with the regulations that he's had in place since the pandemic started. I know that he said prior to Halloween night, based on the results of whether or not people were going out and partying, we could end up going back to level 1. So that's always a possibility, but I think he's going to continue to be strong with his regulations and what businesses he considers essential.
Yeah, and then one last question about the governor's race for both of you. Which candidate do you think would be better suited for supporting struggling local businesses being affected by the pandemic?
I think personally, I like Dan Forest in this regard. I think Dan Forest has a good business mindset to it, and I think he would really utilize government regulation and slashing of government regulation in order to really get business back on their feet. So I think he would really be more beneficial to North Carolina businesses.
I have a different answer. Obviously, I think Roy Cooper is doing a wonderful job. Obviously, he cares about businesses, but he also cares about people and the health and safety of all of his constituents. And if his people aren't healthy, then businesses aren't going to thrive.
Yeah, well, thank you both again for being here with us tonight. We appreciate you. And we're now going to check back in with John Sarver. He's over at a Democratic watch party in Burlington. John, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Brian. I am here outside the watch party for Democratic 63rd House District candidate Ricky Hurtado, where people are anxiously waiting for election results to come in for this race in the 63rd District. And it is a tight one in the race for incumbent Stephen Ross and Democrat Ricky Hurtado. With 10 out of the 20 precincts reporting, it is a 50 to 49% rate, just under 1,000 votes. And as they're awaiting the remainder of the precincts to report here in Burlington. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, John, and stay with us as ENN continues our special coverage of Election Night 2020.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
Bye-bye. Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
We're going to check back in with Ashlyn Delowy again. She's at a Republican watch party in Burlington. We're going to head on over there. Ashlyn, what's new?
Thank you, Brian. I am now joined by Omar Logo, an Alamance County resident, as well as, we have some cheers behind me right now as more results are coming in the way. But I'm also here with Alamance County resident and runner of the Alamance County Latinos for Trump. Thank you so much for joining me tonight,
My
Omar.
pleasure.
What brings you here tonight?
Well, basically Trump and our local candidates, we're looking forward for them to be elected tonight.
Awesome. And how are you feeling going into the rest of the night? Lots of more results to come, but how are you feeling right now?
Well, for me, it's personal because I'm from Venezuela. I'm a former refugee from Venezuela. And I came here, back, 20 years ago, and I wasn't able to vote. Coming from a communist country, I really enjoy this freedom to the point that I'm willing to defend it. Our president is the one that I see, actually defending this freedom that we have, being able to accomplish so many tasks, so many goals, in such a short period of time. It's impressive, and therefore I think that he needs, our support and also our local candidates as well.
Amazing. Well, there you have it. Omar Logo. Stay tuned for more updates. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Ashlyn. We're going to head over to Baylor Rodman. And Baylor, right now I'm seeing here in North Carolina about 74% of precincts are in. Joe Biden right now leading 49.47 with Donald Trump at 49.14. So very close race right here in North Carolina right now. But what other updates do you have for us?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I got over here, Brian. Just the tiny percentage off. This is really close, really close for sure. Again, not only is Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I just can't believe how close this is. Actually, North Carolina, we said in the pre-show, Brian, it could all come down to the 15 electoral votes in North Carolina, and that may very well be the case. Again, also very close between Tom Tillis and Cal Cunningham. Not as close between Governor Roy Cooper and Dan Forrest, although I think some are saying that Forrest is doing better than they had anticipated. Again, we're not ready to call that race yet, but again, those margins are definitely a lot larger. I want to bring you now, though, to Wisconsin. Okay, well, let's go to Florida. I've already clicked on it. Florida here, again, the president's still up 51.3 to Joe Biden's 47.8. So again, even with those, a lot of more early mail-in ballots have been coming in and receiving and have been received, but Trump is still doing pretty well in terms of the lead there. But again, I really did want to bring you to Wisconsin. Did I click on it? There it did. The 10 electoral votes, and with 31% reporting, we can see here that Donald Trump has a small lead there with 50.9% of the vote, with Joe Biden at 47.6% of the vote. Also, Milwaukee and Green Bay, apparently their votes are going to be a little bit later than usual, and also in Madison, they're reporting the results faster than they anticipated. So a lot of chaos in terms of counting the votes going on in Wisconsin between some of those major cities. But again, with 31% of the vote, we got Trump leading in there. And let's go to Michigan. And the reason I'm bringing these up, right, is because these are all states that pushed the president over the top there. And yes, we only have 16% reporting. So just a few precincts that are in, but Trump has a pretty big lead there with 57.6% of the vote to Joe Biden's 40.6. And the reason I bring this up, right, is because if we look back, we haven't done this yet, but if we look back to 2016, you can see it was the Wisconsin, the Michigan, the Pennsylvania that put him over the top. So that's why we're really certainly looking at these. But it's going to be a long night before we can make any projections on that front. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Baylor. And we are now heading into our next hour of coverage here of the 2020 election. And we do have an update on the race for the U.S. Senate here in North Carolina. As you can see, about 70% of precincts are reporting right now, with Tom Tillis leading by a few percentage points. We're going to head over to Maeve Ashbrook with more on this race. Maeve?
Yeah, Brian, this has been said to be a really important race as far as the balance of the Senate potentially. Tom Tillis is the incumbent, but Cal Cunningham, he's a Democrat, former North Carolina state senator, also a retired military officer. And he says that as far as reopening North Carolina, he thinks Governor Roy Cooper has done a great job. If elected, he says he wants to continue providing widespread testing across the state and also increase personal protective equipment so we can open the state with, quote, peace of mind. Now, as far as Tom Tillis, like I said, he's leading with 49% right now. He is the incumbent Republican senator reopening North Carolina. He says we're in a good position, but it's more important protecting the physical health and economic is not mutually exclusive. So health, economy, two different things, not necessarily mutually exclusive. That's all I have for you right now. Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Maeve. As results come in, Associate Professor of Political Science Carrie Eves says students and voters should trust the validity of the election. President Trump has said that he may not accept the outcome of the election. And according to the most recent Elon poll, 36% of registered North Carolina voters say they are not at all confident that President Trump will accept the results of the election as valid.
I think it's important that we trust the process and let it play out as it's supposed to. And then we can talk about what that means and its influences and its impacts on our institutions. But it might just take some time. And so I think part of it is I would urge just patience going forward.
Eves, who specializes in American government, says students should look at post-election resources on the Elon Votes website, including a panel discussion with political science faculty on November 5th. And we're going to check back in with Isabella Seaman. She's on the ground in Graham. Isabella, what's new?
Yeah, Brian. So let's talk about precincts. There are 38 precincts in Alamance County. There were 37 on Super Tuesday, but now they broke 2 up for social distancing, making it 38. So if we look right now, 25 of the 38 precincts are now reported. That's 65%. So that comes together as 70% of the votes for Alamance County have been counted. Now you can see there isn't a line behind me, but just 20 minutes ago, there was a long line. There could only be 2 people, 2 precinct judges from each precinct in at one time for them to collect the ballots that they had. Now, talking more about the precincts, so there has been 70% of the votes and we're just waiting on those final votes to come in because it does look like most of the precincts, since no one is in the parking lot anymore, have been delivered. So we're just waiting on those live results to be computed and they will be up shortly. Brian?
Thank you, Isabel. We'll check back in with you later. But for right now, we're going to head over to Baylor Rodman with an update on the national race. Baylor.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, ENN can now project that Donald Trump will win the state of Kansas as well. So now he's up to 98 electoral votes to Biden's 131. It is too early to call the Senate race there, but it looks like Republicans are looking pretty good as Roger Marshall seems to be in the lead to Barbara Bollier. So again, it's too early to call that, but it's something that we're looking at. And we're getting new results in Arizona. The polls there just closed, but it's 11 electoral votes. And of course, this is something, a state that Joe Biden really wants to take over, as all the Democrats do, and he's currently in the lead there with 53.8% of the vote, with 45 to Trump, with just about 48% of the precincts reporting. And we can also report that Mark Kelly, the Democrat there, is over Republican incumbent Republican incumbent Martha McSally, excuse me. And so again, that is a state in terms of the Senate race there that Democrats again would need to win. Mark Kelly would need to win over Martha McSally there if Democrats want a shot at the Senate majority, most likely. Again, Republicans look like they could afford to lose that one, but we're still monitoring that, and we'll of course bring you all of that analysis and updates about what that means on the federal layout once we have more concrete information. But we can say so far in Arizona's 11th, 53.8 for Biden, 45 for Trump, which is 48% reporting. And again, we can confirm that Donald Trump has won the state of Kansas. That's the latest I got for you. Brian?
Thank you, Baylor. And stay with us. We'll be right back.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
I rescued Toast from a shelter in 2011. I love Toast because she's a lazy diva. Toast does whatever she wants, obviously. She's sleeping right now. She's an epic snuggler. She's so comforting. She's so loving. Toast makes me laugh. When I walked into the shelter, I knew right then that she was special.
Alvin and the Chipmunks want to remind you, bacteria can hide in food and make you ill.
Wow.
But you can keep bacteria from ruining your day with 4 simple steps. Clean.
I'm waiting for the rinse cycle.
Separate. Cook. And chill.
We chipmunks are notoriously tidy.
Check your steps. The road trip to food safety starts at foodsafety.gov.
And right now we do have an update on one of the local races we're following, and that is for North Carolina's State House in District 63 and 64. Maeve Ashbrook is going to tell us a little bit more about that race. Maeve?
Yeah, Brian, there are only 10 of 19 precincts reporting right now in Alamance County as far as this race. But what we're looking at is 57% Dennis Riddell, the incumbent, and 42% Eric Henry. Now, a little bit about these candidates. Eric Henry, he is the Democrat. He's a president and CEO of a t-shirt design company in Burlington. Big part of his campaign, climate change, much different from incumbent Dennis Riddell, who is currently, like I said, the incumbent. He's been in office since 2013, and he really wants to help small businesses affected by the pandemic be able to rebuild if reelected. Now, a fun fact about this race, Riddell and Henry are actually live right across the street from each other. They're neighbors and best friends. So even though it's a competitive race, in the end, there's some love there between those two candidates. Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Maeve. We're going to check back in with Baylor Rodman following the presidential race. Baylor, what's new?
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Sorry about that. North Carolina just keeps changing. First, Biden was up 3,000 votes. Now Donald Trump is up about 3,000 votes. So we're at a percentage tie right here with, again, Trump leading in about 3,000 votes overall here in North Carolina. And with about 88% of the precincts reporting. And Tom Tillis also up about 3,000 votes as well. So again, a lot of down party voting in terms of the president's race and in terms of the Senate race as well, but again, Roy Cooper still seems to maintain a little bit of a lead there as well. Arizona, we should start getting more results in there in the next few minutes as well. And of course, I really want to bring you to Georgia with its 16 electoral votes, as Donald Trump still seems to be in the lead there with 57.1 to 41.8. We can also project, I never got to announce this earlier with all the breaking numbers with North Carolina. That's, of course, the one that we're really following strictly, but all 50 states matter, right? And so Louisiana, we were able to call that for President Trump as well. So that gets him up to that 98. So the numbers haven't changed. I just never announced to you that Louisiana went Trump's way, so I want to make sure to do that. And we continue to be looking at Florida with its 49 electoral votes. Donald Trump, with 91% of the precincts reporting, still seems to maintain a little bit of a lead there. Again, too close to call for a lot of these things, but things seem to be shifting a little bit, but it's very, very back and forth here in North Carolina, especially. So as soon as I have the latest updates, I will bring that to you as well. Again, just to our neighbors to the south, South Carolina went Trump's way, but also you should know that Lindsey Graham, the senator from there, an incumbent Republican, won his seat. Of course, Democrats poured a lot of money into that. That was one that they really wanted to flip as well. They did not do that this evening. So Lindsey Graham remains the senior senator from South Carolina. Brian?
Thank you, Baylor. Very tight race for sure right now in North Carolina between the two candidates. We'll continue watching that. But for now, we're going to head over to Ashlyn Delowy. She's at a Republican watch party in Burlington. Ashlyn, how are things going? Clearly, there's a lot of cheering going on there. We couldn't quite hear Ashlyn, so we will check back in with her in a few minutes. But again, we're going to head to commercial right now. Tune in a few minutes to be back with us.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Welcome back. We're going to check back in with Baylor Rodman following that presidential race. Baylor?
Thank you so much, Brian. I want to take you to Texas now because we have a little bit of an update there. I think the last time I brought this to you, Biden was in the lead, but we have Trump there in the lead now with 50.4% of the vote, with 48.3% to Joe Biden, with 67% of our precincts reporting. And I want to bring you to Pennsylvania now. Again, they're going to be counting ballots for a while out there for sure. So don't know that we'll have an answer to this tonight, but this is one of the first times we've seen Trump in the lead now here in Pennsylvania as well, with just 19% of the precincts reporting. I think you're seeing amongst Pennsylvania, amongst a lot of the other states, they're slowly but surely trying to count their way there. But again, he's got 50.9 to Joe Biden's 46.1. And let's go again to North Carolina because it really just is so close. If you missed it just a few minutes ago, Donald Trump now has a little bit of a wider margin here between Joe Biden with 49.7 to 49.1% of the vote. Again, Tom Tillis still in a slight lead over Cal Cunningham as well, with, again, 88% of our precincts reporting. So this is going to be certainly very tight. And let's take you to Michigan, too, because we didn't do that yet on this hit. And with its 16 electoral votes, we still have Donald Trump there with 57.6% of the vote over Joe Biden with 40.6%. But again, just 16% of our precincts are reporting, so we're certainly going to have to keep our eye on that. A lot of things changing, a lot of things going on, and I'll bring you the latest updates when we have them. Brian.
Thank you for that, Baylor. We're going to go back over to Ashlyn Delowy at the Republican Watch Party, where it was lots of excitement going on earlier. Ashlyn, what's all the excitement about?
Thank you. I am now joined by Natalie, a local student here at Southern Alamance. Natalie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Natalie, as a young student here at North Carolina, what are you most looking forward to for tonight?
I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing North Carolina stay red, and hopefully if it turns out the way I'm hoping, I'll be coming in as a young adult. It's so important to have a strong economy, and coming into that, it's so crucial to get out and vote, and I really, really hope that, North Carolina stays red and Trump pulls it out for another 4 great years.
And again, what does it mean to you? What does this election mean to you right now?
It's so important. I mean, I'm 17 now, 18 next year. I mean, it's just, I don't really know how to say. 4 years, to continue to do that. He's done nothing for himself and continue to just build up our economy and work hard for the people of America, and I hope he gets to continue to do that.
Natalie, thank you so much for chatting with me. You heard it here. Stay tuned for more and cheers and excitement results come in. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you, Ashlyn. Our Margaret Faust took a look at the historic early voting numbers in North Carolina. Take a look.
Junior Katie Zimmerman decided to vote early this year, worried COVID could get in the way if she waited until day of voting.
Really scared of maybe having to quarantine and then not being able to go and vote. So it was really good just to have it done with. And no matter what happens to me now, I cast my ballot.
She says she waited in line for an hour and a half at the Mebane Arts and Community Center, one of 5 early voting locations in Alamance County. She says people were fairly spread out and most were wearing masks. Her voting experience was similar to mine at Elmira Community Center.
I walked in and the lady made sure I had my mask on. She gave me some hand sanitizer and she gave me the I voted pen. And then I went to, verify I was who I said I was. And then they handed me, the blank ballot. And then they gave me a Q-tip so you weren't actually touching the screen. I went to go stand and wait for someone to bring me to the voting booth, and then I voted, and then I got my paper ballot. I put it into a scanner, and then I left.
Zimmerman says by voting, she is doing her part to make her voice heard.
My mom always took me to go vote with her when I was a little girl, and so until I started learning more about American history and voting rights, I just thought that everyone voted. I didn't realize how low voter turnout in America was until I was older.
Zimmerman says having a female candidate for vice president on the ballot reminds her that women have only had the right to vote for about 100 years. Margaret Faust, Elon Local News.
Coming up, John Starver has another interview for us at the Democratic Watch Party here in Alamance County. Stay with us.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. As it turns out, we have very similar personalities. And this cat makes me make art because he's always motivating me to take pictures of him, to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. It's just that simple. Well, he's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Got a quarter?
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie nailed it. We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Greg, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
We're now going to check in with John Sarver. He's stationed at a Democratic watch party in Burlington. John, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Brian. I am here at the Ricky Hurtado watch party here in Burlington with the campaign manager and Alamance County Democratic Chair Elaine Berry. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And first, I want to just kind of talk a little bit. It's a really tight race between Ricky Hurtado and Stephen Ross. The margin is just a little over 500 votes with 16 of the precincts reported. Just give me a kind of a look into what's going to happen over the course of the next couple hours in terms of getting those final results and what's kind of the next step for the campaign.
Okay, we're obviously waiting to see how it's going to play out. We've looked at the precincts and we hope that our turnout equals the Republican turnout. If it did, then we may be able to take this one home. Of course, no matter what happens, we are going to be looking at provisional ballots after the race. So there'll still be some work left for us to do and for the other side.
And working with this campaign over the course of this election cycle, could you just tell me about your experience working on this campaign and how important this seat is for the North Carolina legislature?
Yeah, well, I worked on Erica McAdoo's campaign in 2018, and she lost by 298 votes. And when she decided not to run, and I moved to Ricky's campaign to try to help him win, we had a plan for what we were going to do, and of course COVID came along. So we've tried to do the best we can. We've utilized a lot of different things, like we really relied heavily on digital, and we ran some TV ads. But our canvassing was really restricted because of COVID. So it's only recently that we've been out doing lit drops, and we've done a ton of phone banking and card writing. So we're hoping that we've attracted some new young voters, and we have a person of color running, so we hope that appeals to a diverse group of voters, and we're hoping we can bring this home for the state. As far as what difference it'll make, if we can get a Democratic majority in the State House and in the Senate, then we'll be able to pass some measures that will improve medical care, improve our public schools, and we believe help the economy become something that's more a working economy more available to every citizen.
And could you just give me a sense, as the night progresses, kind of give me a sense of just like the atmosphere within the campaign and just kind of what are you guys feeling as you're waiting for these final results to come in?
We're trying to feel patient. It's been a long campaign. Cindy Wright and I started working for the campaign way back in July. trying to lay the groundwork for this campaign. So to have the first Latino Democratic House of Representatives candidate, well, actually, I guess if he wins, he will be the first legislator who is of Latino heritage. I think that would be tremendous. I think it's a voice that needs to be heard. And we were really hoping with the diverse slate of candidates that we ran in the county that we would be able to have more victories. But if we can get this one, it will be a real prize, and we think you'll do a fabulous job.
Ms. Berry, thank you very much for joining me tonight for our live interview. Brian, back to you in the studio.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, John.
Thank
now
you.
we're going to turn to the national race and head over to Baylor Rodman. Baylor?
Hi, Brian. Yes, here you can see, I'm going to try and squeeze in here, that right now in terms of the U.S. Senate race, we're looking, both parties are doing pretty well right now with 41 set in stone for the Democrats, 41 for the Republicans. Two that are really those close contested races that we're still waiting on, that of course are too close to call, is currently in Maine. Susan Collins versus Sarah Gideon. Susan Collins is the Republican incumbent there. Going into polling, she was not looking too well. She is currently in the lead there, but again, just a handful of precincts are reporting right now. And then Arizona seems to be going Mark Kelly's way, the Democrat, over incumbent Republican Martha McSally. And I'm going to take you to Arizona right now on the presidential level, because we got a boatload of reports there. With our 11 electoral votes, we have so far that Joe Biden up 53.9 to Donald Trump 44.8. Biden so far leading in Macocota County by 10 points, with 3/4 of the vote that is already counted. So again, leading that county by 10 points, very important county for Democrats. And again, he's got a pretty big margin there with, again, 3/4 of all the votes there already counted. So if that lead holds up, it's going to be very hard for Trump to recover to take those 11 electoral votes, as he did 4 years ago and as Republicans have done for the last 25 years. Things are getting very contentious here, though, in North Carolina, and you heard from our John Sarver, who was live at the Democratic headquarters. I actually got to speak with both the chairs of the Democratic and Republican Alamance County headquarters and talked with them and students about why they felt it was important for students to re-register here in North Carolina and how the student vote could persuade the county. So let's take a look at that. Elon Votes has so far registered more than 25% of undergraduate students for the first time, placing Elon as the 8th highest university in the nation that uses TurboVote. Of the over 1,500 first-time voters at Elon, many are also choosing to register here in Alamance County.
I think people should think of Elon as part of the community more than we do right now. Although it can feel like a bubble sometimes, we are part of this community. We should be active in this community.
For Wood, it's about making sure his vote counts.
Some recent changes that have been made with the mailing service, I was uncomfortable doing an absentee ballot from my state, which is the state of Alabama.
A higher number of students voting in our surrounding neighborhood could certainly impact the outcome of not only those statewide races, but also contested local ones. Chair of Alamance County Democrats, Elaine Berry, says she believes students can make all the difference to turn Alamance blue this November.
I will tell you, in 2018, I worked for Erica McAdoo, who was a young candidate running for state legislature, and she was a first-time candidate. She lost by 298 votes. So to ask me that question is, it can make all the difference in the world.
Meanwhile, Alamance County Republicans Chair Ben York says he thinks there's an assumption that more students register to vote throughout the county is bad for the Republican Party. But he believes in the end, they'll turn out to vote in his party's favor.
It's whether those folks make an effort to learn about the different candidates.
Both party chairs believe that students have the right to vote here in Alamance County, even as some vote here purely due to the competitive nature of the state in presidential elections.
I think that should be allowed because they live here. If they're living here, whether it's in a dorm or they're renting a home.
I think it's ridiculous to say, why should these people vote here? Some of them are going to stay here. Some are going to make this their home. And I would venture to say most of them are going to make it a better place for all of us.
And here in North Carolina, as it stands right now with our 15 electoral votes, President Trump is still in the lead with 49.8% of the vote as opposed to Joe Biden's just even 49. That's about a 40,000 vote difference currently between the two. And looking at the U.S. Senate race between Tom Tillis, the Republican incumbent, and Democrat Cal Cunningham, we're seeing very similar trends along, again, very close, just a few tens of thousands of votes in between them. And again, Tillis ahead, as with Trump. Again, so that's what we have so far. But again, Brian, I'll send it back to you. And again, as soon as I have that update, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Baylor. We're going to turn now to the North Carolina State Senate race here in District 24. I'm looking at the results right now. 38 of 53 precincts are reporting, with Republican Amy Galey up by just over 51% right now. So we're going to head over to Maeve to tell us more about that race. Maeve?
Yeah, Amy Galey and J.D. Wooten are running to replace Rick Gunn, who's held this seat since 2011, but he's stepping down. Galey, like I said earlier, she's the chair of the Alamance County Commissioners currently, and like Brian said, she's leading with just above 51.94% of the vote. And J.D. Wooten, he also ran for the seat against Gunn in 2018. He's an Air Force veteran and an intellectual property attorney. He did lose in 2018, but says that Joe Biden is actually who inspired him to run for a second time. Brian, that's what I have. Back to you.
Thank you, Maeve, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for ENN's special coverage of Election Night 2020. We'll be back in a half hour at 11 with more results for you. Stay put.